And when I got there, I had one place in mind, and I didn't know where I was going. I was trying to find Babaji's cave, the one that's an autobiography of a yogi. Um, and so when I got there, I knew that there was a group, YSS, which is part of Self Realization Fellowship, but the Indian group. They had a ashram that was close by, and they looked after it. That's all I knew, and I had a general idea. So I spent my first 3, 4, or 5 weeks in India trying to find it. And so I traveled all over the face of the Himalayas, looking, seeking, and everything. Well, when I first got to India, I went downtown like 3 hours after I got in off the airplane. The airplane landed at 1 o'clock in the morning. I got to the hotel at 2:30 or something. I was up at sunrise. I went out there and I was looking, and we came to a park. And at this park were these Sikhs, with the turbans and everything. And they're out there. And every day they've been coming out for like 25 straight years at that time. So now it's over 30, 40 years. They go out there and they exercise together. They were a group called the Blood Society, kind of like Skull and Crossbone or something, or one of these intellectual, wealthy kind of people organizations. In other words, this was the cream of the crop. These were people, authors, poets, CEOs, bankers, politicians, chief of police, stuff like that, shakers and movers. There was no custodians, beggars. It was an elite group, kind of like a Chamber of Commerce group. So these guys' idea was to get together and exercise, do yoga and yoga laughter, which was part of this thing. They did laughter. And they had a book. And so I got there, it was sunrise, and we were talking to them, and they're explaining all this to me. And the guy gives me the book. He said, "Here's the book I wrote." He gives me a copy of the book he wrote. And this other guy gave me one of his poetry books he wrote. He just happened to have it in his bag. Oh, great, that's good. It's all in Hindi. I didn't know what's going on. But the book on the organization was in English. I thought that was interesting. And in there, it listed the 10 most important things for this society. If you do these things, your life is good, right? And it starts off with you gotta take care of the body temple. You gotta eat right, sleep right, exercise, take care of your physical health. Great. And then you had to get a career. You had to make money. You can't be a beggar. You got to be out there. You got to contribute to society. I don't necessarily have them in the right order, but basically it was stuff like that. And it was like education. You can't get a good career unless you have an education, and then it's like family and stuff like that was in the bottom of that. But someplace in that pyramid of things, they had all these great. It was all great ideas. I mean, it was like, how could you argue with that, right? So he reads it to me and he smiles, hands me the book as a gift, and he goes, "Which one do you think is most important?" And of course, I'm one of these guys. I just shoot from the hip. I speak as I feel. And of course, I don't have anything on that list that I list as number one. I go, the most important thing in life is love. Without love, what's the purpose of good health, money, education? None of that will do you any good. You have to have love. And so I go with this whole beautiful spiel about love, and the guy just gets mad, grabs a book from me, goes back and he reads it out loud as he could read it, shouts it at me, thinking, maybe this guy just doesn't hear. If I shout it at him, then he'll understand it, right? I'm going, and then he threw the book at me and he walked away. So my friend kind of looks at me and says, "Well, that's really great. We've been here about 2 hours in India, and already you've ticked off everybody that's anybody in this town. What are you going to do for an encore, right?" So I said, "No, I'm right about that." I said, I'm right. I know I'm right. So we left there. We traveled towards Pakistan. We went up to the Pakistani border, and then we went to where the Golden Temple's at, which was probably one of my most moving experiences in India, that trip. I got there at sunrise with the sun gleaming off the Golden Temple, itself. And I was treated with such respect and honored, and I didn't expect, being Westerners walking into a Sikh temple that, but man, it couldn't do enough for me. Food, place to stay, water, whatever it is you need, here, go. Got to take her around, gave me the history of the place. It was just beautiful. When I saw that sun coming up and flashing on the roof, I actually, I reached down and I was actually crying. I didn't know why I was crying, but the tears were just rolling down. I was just really, really moved. It was just beautiful. Anyway, so we traveled all over India. We went up looking for the Dalai Lama, went up to where he's at, went to his residence in the Himalayas. And of course, he was in California at the time. I think he was in San Francisco Bay Area. I'm going, that's great. I go there and he comes there. All right. So we end up eventually in the part of the Himalayan mountains that we were looking for. And we found out where the ashram was at. We went to the ashram and there was a Swami there and the place was practically empty. They'd all been going to a convocation in Ranchi. There was an annual convocation. Everybody shows up there and he's just closing the place up and he's the last to go on. And I told him, I said, hey, wait, you can't close everything. I said, I've waited almost 59 years of my life to get here to India. And there's only one thing I want to see. That's Babaji's temple or cave. He goes, well, nobody can show you. You can't find it. It's hidden. It's dangerous. I said, no, I want to see it. And so he talked to me, he found out how long I've been doing Kriya Yoga, found out I belonged to, he was checking me out to see how sincere I was. And told him, no, I had been doing Kriya Yoga for decades. And I read the book when I was 9 years old. He says, okay. He says, well, let's see how you feel in the morning. So I spent the night there at the ashram, and the ashram was in the Himalaya mountains. It was high altitude. It was cold at night. This was like middle of October, maybe the end of October. And it could get down to like 20s, it was cold. You could see your breath. And he's got me in a room with a wooden bunk. Wood, there's no mattress. It's got wood. And I put like a quilt under that. And I got like 10 blankets on top of me and I can see my breath, right? In the middle of the night, I ain't getting up to use the restroom or nothing. I'm staying right there. It's so cold. So there's no glass on the windows. There's screen. So it's like open air. So it's like you're sleeping in a cave. And instead of complaining and moaning and groaning about it, I go, why not? This is the real deal, man. You go into the Himalayas, you should be sleeping on a wooden floor. I mean, a wooden, bunk. You should be having a windows open. You should be freezing. And the next day, I open up a bucket of water, and it's just almost not frozen. I mean, if I sit there long enough, it'd be ice, but it just barely come out liquid. So I give it a good sponge bath. And being a seeker, I think you're the type of you'd enjoy it. You'd say, no, this is part of the ticket. This is the deal. And you go down for breakfast, and of course, what did they got? A potato, a little bit of rice, and some dal and some tea, of course, right? Chai. And then he comes down and he takes me aside and he goes, you still want to go? And I said, yeah. He says, okay, I'm going to give you instructions. There's no guides. We've never sent anybody up there without guides. They all got to know where they're going. But if you can understand my directions, I'll let you go. I said, okay. So he gets out. He says, I want you to you leave here, turn right. That's about the only positive direction I had the whole time. Turn right. You hit the road. What road? Well, one of those roads down the road. Just hit a road, you'll know. Go down that road 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 minutes, depending on your driving speed, whatever that means. And then you come to a couple forks of the road. Don't take those. Take the next one. Go. A couple of forks in the road, but don't take those, but take the next one. What? All right, so, and then you go down that. He says, when you go down that road will eventually end. Get out, walk. It's a dirt road, and you'll see some pathways. Go to the one that has a sign. Oh, okay, that sounds easy. And he kind of chicken scratched all these lines. It looked like nothing. It was on the back of a piece of paper form. And he hands it to me. He says, now, can you find it? And of course, I want to go. I'm going to try it, right? I said, yeah, I'll find it. And he says, okay, you got one rule. You got to be back by 5:30. Well, this is early in the morning, right? I got hours. Okay. He says, otherwise, I'm locking the gate up to the ashram, and all your stuff's inside. You'll be locked out. You'll have to go to a hotel. I said, okay. So we go out, get my driver. My driver listens to my crazy instructions. This is the same driver that drove me in the desert, right? And he's going, okay, fine. All right. I said, nah, just keep going. I'll tell you when. So we come to one that kind of looks like it might be a fork in the road. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. You know, it's what they consider a road is like a footpath. I don't know. So I keep going down. We drive 40, 50 minutes. I'm going, okay, stop. Pull over here. Go that way. So we go down this road. We can't go any farther. We get out. Okay, this is right. Now we're right at the right place. Eh? And there's all these pathways, like cattle trails coming down to this one we're on. And there's no sign. But I look over about 30 feet away. Somebody took the sign through it. It was sitting over in a pile of rocks. So I said, obviously one of these trails goes to the top. Right? So we were hiking. We got lost. And I got to realize this. I've been sick about 3 weeks at this point in India with dysentery. So I was just let it go at that. Let your imagination go. So I got dysentery. I'm kind of loosey goosey, and I've lost 26 pounds at this point of the journey. 26 pounds in 3 weeks. So you know I'm sick, and I'm having epileptic seizure. I didn't know it at the time. I was having an epileptic seizure, and I was having a heart attack. I didn't know either. So I was kind of in and out of it. And I was kind of fuzzy. So we're climbing up this thing, and it's only supposed to take about an hour and a half, or whatever. 4 hours we're climbing. We're lost. Finally, we see what looks like a building at the top. Turns out it's Babaji's temple. And he gave me these keys because even in India, with all the sacred places over there, they have to protect them because vandals go in, people tag stuff, believe it or not. They go into Babaji's cave and they were chipping pieces of the cave away and then selling it in the town. You know, here's a piece of Babaji's cave, you know, for $10 or something. So they have it all locked up now. It's a real shame, but at least they got it locked up. So you can't get to the cave unless you go through all these gates. So I open up the gate and I'm just sweating, really bad sweating. And I lay down in this temple, and it's Babaji's temple, and they got this life-size portrait of Babaji in all his glory, a big painting, right, at the temple wall, one side. And I come in there and I'm just going, oh, this is beautiful, right? And I wasn't ready to move any farther. The cave is still another 100 yards, but uphill. But so I sat there for about 30, 40 minutes, got my breath, because I was having a very serious medical issue. I just didn't know it, but I was having a hard time getting my breath. So we finally leave that. We travel the last 100 yards and going up this hill. And there's like a prison door, jail door that's in front of the cave, you know, bars. It's a shame, but it is. So I got the keys, I unlock it, and my friend goes, no, you go in, you go first. This is your thing. So I go in there and we got a blanket. We're sitting on the cave floor. And to say it was a beautiful place and a beautiful experience and beautiful energy would be an understatement. It's all the above, everything you imagine. But you got to be open to it. I could see my friend wasn't having the same journey I was there. You know, maybe it's the placebo effect. I don't know. But I got in there and it was just like, you know, I'm in the presence. I mean, this is where it all happened. This is where Babaji brought back Kriya Yoga to the masses, brought it back for the world. Here's where it happened, right? 18, whatever it was. And I'm going, wow. So then I reached into my pocket and I pull out this list. I had a list of about 4 pages, 3-4 pages long, typed like number 10 or 12 indicia of names front and back. I wrote down, before I took this journey, everybody that I've ever prayed for, loved, felt sorry for, had a problem with, or wanted to help. I mean, I had some people had names like, you know, John Brown or some name. And then some people was like the homeless man I saw in the corner of Boom in Sacramento, Boom, or whatever it was. But I figured I had the image in my mind. I knew who I was praying for. Babaji don't need an ID. He knows. He doesn't need fingerprints, right? He's going to know what I mean. So I had like hundreds of names like that. Either a nickname, a description, or a first name or something. But I knew who they were. And I figured he would know who they were. And most especially, I wanted anybody that's ever cheated me, cursed me, been nasty and mean to me, or doesn't like me, or I had them at the top of my list. I want them to get the blessing. And the next people that I really wanted to get blessed were the people that I've hurt. And then there's people I just wanted to love. So I had all kinds of different kind of people. People I just, grandchildren, old bosses, people I fought against in Vietnam. There was a guy that we captured as POW. I remember how scared he looked. So all these people got prayed for. Mentally, I took the list out and I went over it and I prayed and asked Babaji to bless them all. I figured they couldn't take the physical trip there themselves, but I took them to Babaji's cave with a list that was right in my shirt, right next to my heart. And I took that list with me to all the 3 sacred places on the Ganges, sacred temples, everywhere. But in Babaji's cave, I read them. Later on, I took that same list. We were in Varnasa, I think that's just along the Ganges. I went out in a boat at sunrise, rowboat, and the sun's coming up over the Ganges. And I read the list again. And then I took a lighter and I burned the list till it turned to ashes. I dropped the last little piece and it floated on the Ganges at sunrise. I figured that was an appropriate way to give the last little shot. Anyway, so I'm back in the cave. Then I meditate. And then we realized we got to get going because we wasted a lot of time getting lost and days getting shorter. So we leave the cave. We leave the temple. We lock it up. We're going. And my friend, he hasn't learned his lesson that never to follow me because I just follow my heart. I end up wherever I end up. I'm happy. So we're hiking a couple hours and we ain't getting anywhere. We're farther back into the mountains and we have no clue where we're at. And I'm standing there on this cliff and it's a 30-foot cliff drop, but it's not straight. It kind of goes down and kind of slopes a little and goes down. So if you dropped like I did, you drop about 8-10 feet, bounce, drop 8-10, 12 feet drop. You can have these 3 or 4 bounces before you got down to the bottom. And then so I'm standing there and my head is really dizzy. My heart is pounding out of my shirt. I'm thinking I must be okay because I was really sweating profusely the whole time I was hiking. But the last half hour, there was no more sweat. I was totally dry. So I thought, well, maybe I'm okay. No thought goes into me that, yeah, okay, now you're in trouble, man. You don't even have any sweat left, right? So I'm having a seizure and I'm having a heart attack. And my heart is just like, it feels like somebody's got their fingers with their fingernails inside my chest and they're just taking my heart and scratching my heart, right? Just trying to tear my heart out. And it's just, and all of a sudden, boom, and I just cascade off the cliff. Apparently bounce a few times because next thing I know, I'm laying on this boulder about the size of an old Volkswagen Beetle, car. And I'm looking up at the sky. And it's like the movie or the cartoon, The Simpsons, the beginning of the show, and it goes, The Simpsons, and the clouds part and all that stuff, in the blue sky. It was like that. I'm going, and that's what I was thinking. I'm thinking, oh, those Simpsons, this is cool. And the next thing you know, I'm moving up towards them. I'm going, what? And then I look down and there's my body laying, eyes shut, not moving, not breathing. I'm dead on a rock. And I'm going, whoa, what's going on here, right? So I go, well, if I'm dead, I've been to Babaji's cave. What the heck? What a great way to go, right? You go to Babaji's cave, you pay respects, you meditate, you come back, and on your way back down, you die. Okay, life is okay. It was all right. I wasn't as sad about it at all. And I'm watching my body and everything down there. And all of a sudden, I'm watching my body, and out of these bushes, out of this tall grass, I see the head of a cobra. And it's coming right towards my body, right? And a person is going right over my feet and legs. And instead of frightening me, it's just this love thing. And I want to grab it. And so it's going over my feet. And there was all of a sudden, like, you call the paramedics and they come out and they go, cleared. And then they shock you, right? With those paddles. Defibrillator, I think they call it. But it was like somebody defibrillated my spine, I'll call them. It was like my spine went, and I just jumped up and I took a breath. And I go, oh, I'm breathing. And so what's the first thing I want to do? I want to grab the snake. And I keep grabbing the snake and it's slithering through my things. Now, the first time I told the story, my wife heard me tell the story. I think I said the snake was 6 to 7 feet. I wasn't sure because I couldn't see its head and tail. And then 3 years later, I was telling the story. My wife's listening. She says, the first time you told that story was about 6 or 7 feet. She says, now you got it as a king cobra size. What's going on? And it's the Irishman in me. But it was huge. And the only way I say that is if you're laying dead or half dead on a rock and a cobra's crawling over your feet, I'm going to guarantee that when you come alive, you're going to tell people it was a huge cobra snake. There's no other description. Yeah, it was a huge cobra snake. I mean, there's no small snake. It's huge, right? It's a cobra. So I'm chasing it, and it goes down through this grass, and I follow it. And as I'm following it, I see a little trickle of a waterfall. Not a big one, just 7, 8, 9 feet tall. Little trickle coming down a rock into this little stream. And a snake goes right behind this waterfall. It's a little cavern there. Just big enough for a snake, nothing else. And I'm staring at it thinking, and what's coming to my mind is that chapter in Autobiography of a Yogi where Larry Masha gets this golden castle, temple, whatever it was that he had materialized, this wonderful place. And when it's all done, Babaji tells him, go down and wash and bathe. And he goes down and he finds a stream with a little waterfall and he washes. And that's a story that came to my mind when I'm standing there watching that. I'm thinking, wow, I wonder if this is where he washed. I wonder if that's the cave. I mean, the little tiny little thing. I wonder if that's the little waterfall. I mean, because it was totally off the beaten path. I'll never know. But anyway, so my friend at that point took over the journey and said, no, now we're following the stream because water always goes down. So we ain't going high anymore. We're going down. We'll find a house. We'll find our way back. Which we did. We found a farmhouse. We paid some farm kids, little kids, to take us to our vehicle. For some reason, they knew where it was at. I guess everybody was talking about us. We're the only vehicle out there, so it wasn't hard to find. Yeah, it was this vehicle up in the Himalayas. That must be it. So we found a vehicle, got in, got back. Just as the Swami, remember him? And he's got the key in the lock, and he's just getting ready to lock up. It's 5:29, and he's locking the place up. And I go, oh, we're back. So then he asks the story. He says, because he looks at me, I got a torn shirt, dirt all over me from falling. I got a rash because when I fell, I went through all these kind of like poison oak, whatever their equivalent is there in India, but it wasn't poison, it was whatever they got. And so I had all these red rashes everywhere. Yes, everywhere you'd sweat, there they are. And I was dizzy, and I had a near-death experience. I had all this stuff, and I'm trying to tell him everything that happened, right? And he's just listening. And I'm going through all this stuff and telling him, hey, look, and I had a dysentery. I had to hike off the trail to find, he says, I don't need to know details. I said, okay. So I'm in the middle of the story, and this lady keeps interrupting. There was a woman there at the ashram that was visiting. She was going back to her hotel from Alaska. And she kept saying, don't you know what they say, mister? She kept interrupting me. I finally go, okay, what do they say? She says, it is said that those that have the most arduous journey to Babaji's cave have the greatest blessing. And then she walks away. And then the Swami smiles at me and he walks away, and I'm standing there totally chilling out, like it's about 38 degrees. I'm freezing. I don't care. My shirt's ripped up. I don't care. And I got a smile on my face. My body's shaking from the cold. And I'm just feeling so wonderful. And I go meditate for another hour at the temple, and I'm just going, yeah, if that's the qualifications to have a great journey, then I qualified. I mean, who else goes there and almost dies, falls off a cliff? All this stuff happens, right? So that was a wonderful experience. And people go, what do you mean, a wonderful experience? You almost died. You died, all this stuff happened. But to me, it's never what happens to you. It's how you see that experience. In other words, you and I could go someplace and something happens, and you could focus on, geez, I broke my leg on that hiking trip, or you come back and say, wow, I broke that leg, but I got to sit there, and while I was sitting there, I got to see an owl in the tree, and I met some really neat people, and then that led to me taking some time off work where I read this great book, which led to me having this spiritual experience. You never know where things are going to go. So when things happen to us, the first thing you got to say is, it was supposed to. People read my books and they go, oh, what do you mean nothing ever bad's happened to you? Because I say nothing's ever bad happened to me. What do you mean? You're in a hospital a year. You had this operation. You had this. You had that. You got blown up. You got shot up. You're in helicopter crashes. Your car crashes. Motorcycle crashes. You're falling off 2-story buildings. I mean, what do you mean nothing bad's ever happened? I go, no. Everything was supposed to happen happened. And it's placed me exactly where I got to be right now. Meeting the people I need to meet, doing the things I need to do, being where I'm supposed to be, and feeling as I am. It's a perfect plan. If I would have changed anything along the way, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have had my kids, wouldn't have had my grandkids. It'd been a different future. That's the whole thing. If somebody asks, if you had it all do over again, you being a philosopher, if you had it all do over again, would you do it differently? And people will say, yeah, well, you know, and I'm telling people, no, there's certain stupid things that you say and do. You know, you hurt somebody or something. Yeah, you'd want to redo that. But all in all, would you want to change anything if that brought you to the realization where you're at right now? So it's all attitude. Everything that happens is about attitude.